Welcome to Champion Stories. If this is your first time here, subscribe now and become part of our community inspired by remarkable moments and life lessons from Manny Pacquiao. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your story is also part of this journey. Now let's get into today's story. Manny Pacquiao sat in the quiet of his training room in General Santos City, the morning light filtering through windows that overlooked the neighborhood where his journey had begun decades earlier. At 45, the legendary boxer had achieved everything the sport could offer, but the weight of success had brought responsibilities he had never anticipated as a young fighter dreaming of escape from poverty. The walls around him displayed championship belts and photographs with world leaders, yet his mind was occupied by a stack of letters on his desk, requests for help from families throughout the Philippines facing medical crises they could never afford to resolve. Each letter told a story of desperation and hope, parents writing on behalf of children who needed surgeries, treatments, or medications that remained beyond their financial reach. Manny read every request personally, understanding that behind each formal plea was a family, experiencing the same kind of helplessness his own parents had faced when he was young, and opportunities seemed impossible. The champion had established formal charitable programs through his foundation, but these individual appeals touched something deeper in his heart, reminding him of the arbitrary nature of fortune and the responsibility that came with being blessed beyond measure. The letter that had captured his attention that morning came from Esperanza Santos, a factory worker in Davao City, writing about her 19-year-old son, Miguel, whose promising boxing career had been derailed by a spinal tumor requiring surgery the family could never afford. The young man's story resonated with Manny in ways that went beyond simple sympathy. Miguel had been training as an amateur boxer, following the same path that had lifted Manny from poverty to global recognition. The irony that boxing, which had saved Manny's life, might be lost forever to another young fighter due to circumstances beyond his control, felt like a personal challenge. Manny's wife Jinky found him in the training room an hour later, still holding Miguel's mother's letter and staring out at the streets where he had once run countless miles in preparation for fights that would change his family's destiny. She had learned to recognize the expression that crossed her husband's face when he encountered stories that demanded more than routine charitable assistance, situations that called for the kind of intervention that could transform lives completely. Jinky understood that Manny's success had never been just about personal achievement. It had always been about proving that circumstances of birth didn't have to determine the boundaries of possibility. The champion's decision to help Miguel Santos was made in that moment of quiet reflection, but he knew from experience that the most meaningful assistance often came without fanfare or recognition. Manny had learned that anonymous giving allowed recipients to maintain their dignity while receiving help, avoiding the complications that could arise when charity became entangled with celebrity and public attention. He had developed a network of lawyers and financial advisors who could facilitate such assistance discreetly, ensuring that families received help without feeling obligated to become part of his public narrative. The process of arranging Miguel's surgery would require careful coordination with medical professionals, legal representatives, and financial institutions. But Manny approached such challenges with the same methodical preparation he had once brought to championship fights. He understood that changing someone's life required more than good intentions. It demanded attention to detail, proper planning, and the kind of follow-through that ensured assistance achieved its intended goals. As he reached for his phone to begin making the necessary calls, Manny felt the familiar satisfaction that came from using his success to create opportunities for others, knowing that Miguel's story was about to take a turn that would surprise everyone involved, including the young man himself. Manny spent the following days researching Miguel's medical situation with the thoroughness he had once applied to studying opponents before major fights. He contacted Dr. Remedios Fernandez at the hospital in Davao City, introducing himself through intermediaries to avoid the complications that his celebrity status might create for the medical team. The surgeon's assessment confirmed what Esperanza Santos had written in her letter. Miguel's condition was serious but treatable, requiring a complex procedure that was well within the capabilities of the medical team, but far beyond the financial resources of the family. The champion's investigation revealed details that made Miguel's situation even more compelling and urgent. The young boxer had been training at a small gym in Davao, showing the kind of dedication and natural ability that reminded veteran trainers of Manny's own early development. Miguel's coach, Celestino Morales, spoke with obvious affection about his student's work ethic and character, describing a young man who helped train younger fighters and never complained about the gym's limited equipment or resources. The parallels to Manny's own background were so striking that the champion began to feel a personal connection to this young fighter he had never met. The financial arrangements required delicate handling to ensure that Miguel's family would never learn the identity of their benefactor unless Manny chose to reveal himself at some future time. His legal team, led by attorney Gregorio Villanueva, had extensive experience with anonymous charitable giving and understood the importance of maintaining confidentiality while ensuring that all medical expenses were covered completely. The champion insisted that the assistance extend beyond the surgery itself to include all post-operative care, physical therapy, and any additional treatments that might be necessary for Miguel's complete recovery. Manny's motivation for helping Miguel went beyond simple charity or even empathy for a fellow boxer facing medical crisis. The champion had been reflecting more frequently on his legacy and the ways his success could create lasting positive impact beyond his athletic achievements. Miguel's situation represented an opportunity to change not just one life, but potentially influence an entire family's trajectory, demonstrating the kind of intervention that could break cycles of poverty and limitation that affected countless families throughout the Philippines. The decision to proceed with anonymous assistance was made during a family dinner at the Pacquiao home, where Manny shared Miguel's story with Jinky and their children. His wife had long supported his charitable activities, understanding that generosity was fundamental to her husband's character and that their financial blessings carried responsibilities to help others. Their children, now old enough to understand the significance of their father's success, were enthusiastic about the opportunity to help a young person whose dreams had been threatened by circumstances beyond his control. The logistics of transferring funds and coordinating with the hospital required several days of careful planning, but Manny insisted that every detail be handled with the same precision he had once demanded in his training camps. He wanted Miguel's family to receive the news in a way that would maximize their relief, while minimizing any sense of obligation or debt. The champion understood that the most meaningful gifts were those that empowered recipients rather than creating dependencies, and he was determined that Miguel's assistance would serve as a foundation for the young man's own future success rather than a burden of gratitude that might limit his independence. As the final arrangements were completed and the hospital received confirmation of payment for Miguel's surgery, Manny felt the deep satisfaction that had become familiar through years of similar interventions. He had learned that the greatest victories often took place far from public view, in quiet moments, when individual actions created opportunities for others to discover their own potential. Miguel Santos would never know, at least initially, that his childhood hero had become his anonymous savior, but Manny understood that the young man's recovery and future success would be reward enough for the champion's investment in another fighter's dreams. The surgery took place on a Tuesday morning, and Manny found himself unusually distracted during his own training session. His mind focused on events unfolding in a Davao City hospital rather than the workout routine his trainer had planned. He had arranged for regular updates on Miguel's condition through the discreet network of contacts he had established, but the waiting felt more intense than the hours before his own championship fights. The champion understood that he was emotionally invested in this young man's recovery in ways that went beyond typical charitable giving, feeling a personal stake in the outcome that surprised him with its intensity. Dr. Fernandez's first report confirmed that the surgery had proceeded exactly as planned, with the tumor successfully removed and no complications during the 6-hour procedure. Miguel's nerve function appeared to be intact, and the preliminary indicators suggested that he would make a full recovery with proper rehabilitation. Manny received this news while reviewing footage of his upcoming opponent, but found himself unable to concentrate on fight preparation as he contemplated the life-changing impact of the successful surgery on Miguel and his family. The champion's interest in Miguel's progress continued throughout the young man's hospital stay and initial rehabilitation, with Manny receiving weekly updates on physical therapy sessions and recovery milestones. He learned that Miguel was approaching his rehabilitation with the same determination he had once brought to boxing training, working with therapists to rebuild strength and mobility with a focus that impressed the medical team. These reports reinforced Manny's initial impression that Miguel possessed the character traits necessary to make the most of this second chance at a normal life. Manny's own training schedule during this period included preparation for what would be one of his final professional fights. But he found that Miguel's recovery provided additional motivation for his own physical preparation. The champion understood that his continued success in the ring generated the resources that made interventions like Miguel's surgery possible, creating a direct connection between his athletic performance and his ability to help others. This realization added new meaning to his training sessions, transforming routine preparation into something that served purposes beyond personal achievement. The reports from Miguel's rehabilitation team consistently described a young man whose attitude and work ethic were contributing significantly to his remarkable recovery. Physical therapist Rowena Delgado noted that Miguel's boxing background had given him an understanding of discipline and gradual progress that served him well in the medical context. His willingness to push through discomfort while respecting the limitations imposed by his healing body demonstrated the kind of mental toughness that Manny recognized from his own career, confirming his initial assessment of Miguel's character and potential. As weeks turned into months, Manny began to consider the possibility of eventually revealing his role in Miguel's recovery, understanding that such a revelation could serve purposes beyond simple acknowledgement. The champion had been developing ideas for expanding his foundation's medical assistance programs, and Miguel's experience could provide valuable insights into how such help could be most effectively provided. The young man's perspective as both a recipient of anonymous assistance and a fellow boxer could contribute to the development of programs that would help many other families facing similar crises. The decision about whether and when to reveal his identity to Miguel remained an open question for Manny, who understood that such a revelation would fundamentally change the nature of their connection. The champion valued the purity of anonymous giving, which allowed him to help without creating obligations or expectations that might complicate the recipient's recovery and future independence. But he also recognized that Miguel's story could inspire others to similar acts of generosity, potentially multiplying the impact of his initial intervention in ways that could benefit countless other families throughout the Philippines and beyond. 6 months after Miguel's successful surgery, Manny found himself in an unexpected position as he watched news coverage of the young man's remarkable recovery and return to normal life. Local media in Davao had picked up Miguel's story as an inspiring example of medical success and family determination, but the reports focused entirely on the mysterious anonymous benefactor whose identity remained unknown. The champion watched these broadcasts with mixed emotions, feeling pride in Miguel's progress, while grappling with the growing complexity of maintaining his anonymity as public interest in the story continued to grow. The media attention had transformed Miguel into a local celebrity of sorts, with reporters seeking interviews about his experience and recovery. Manny was impressed by the young man's maturity and grace in handling the spotlight. Noting how Miguel consistently emphasized the role of his medical team and family support while expressing profound gratitude for his anonymous benefactor. The young man's humility and focus on using his experience to help others reminded Manny of his own early interactions with media, when success had felt overwhelming but also carried obvious responsibilities to serve as a positive example. Miguel's decision to change his academic focus to social work had been reported in several news stories, with the young man explaining that his medical experience had inspired him to help other families facing similar crises. This development particularly resonated with Manny, who recognized in Miguel's response to his situation the same kind of character that had driven his own charitable activities. The champion began to see Miguel not just as a successful recipient of assistance, but as someone whose perspective and experience could contribute to larger efforts to help others in need. The growing media interest in Miguel's story had created an unexpected challenge for Manny's legal team, who were working to maintain the confidentiality that the champion had insisted upon from the beginning. Several investigative reporters had begun trying to identify the anonymous benefactor, following financial trails and interviewing hospital staff in attempts to solve what had become a compelling human interest mystery. The champion's lawyers were confident that their arrangements would withstand scrutiny, but the attention was creating pressure that hadn't existed when the assistance was first provided. Manny's own family had been following Miguel's story through news reports, with his children expressing particular interest in the young man's recovery and future plans. During family dinners, they would discuss Miguel's progress and speculate about his anonymous benefactor's motivations, not knowing that their father was the person they were trying to understand. These conversations gave Manny insights into how his actions were perceived by others, reinforcing his belief that anonymous giving allowed recipients to maintain dignity while receiving help that could transform their lives. The champion's training routine during this period included preparation for what he had privately decided would be his final professional fight, a decision that added weight to his considerations about Miguel and the future of his charitable activities. Manny understood that retirement from boxing would provide more time and energy for philanthropic work, but it would also eventually reduce the income that funded his ability to help families like the Santos. This reality made him more interested in developing sustainable programs that could continue helping people long after his fighting career ended. The question of whether to reveal his identity to Miguel had become more pressing as the young man's story continued to attract attention and inspire others. Manny recognized that his revelation could serve multiple purposes, providing closure for Miguel and his family, inspiring others to similar acts of generosity, and potentially creating opportunities for collaboration on future charitable projects. But he also understood that such a revelation would fundamentally change the nature of their relationship, transforming it from anonymous assistance to personal connection with all the complications that celebrity involvement could bring. As Manny considered his options, he found himself drawn to the idea of meeting Miguel in person, understanding that a face-to-face encounter would provide insights that no amount of written reports could offer. The champion wanted to assess Miguel's character and motivations directly, to determine whether the young man possessed the maturity and integrity necessary to handle the knowledge of his benefactor's identity responsibly. Such a meeting would also allow Manny to evaluate whether Miguel might be interested in collaborating on future charitable projects, potentially turning their connection into a partnership that could help many other families facing medical crises. The opportunity for revelation came through an unexpected channel when documentary filmmaker Ernesto Valdez approached Manny's representatives about a project focusing on anonymous charitable giving in the Philippines. The director had learned about Miguel's story through his research and was interested in exploring how such assistance affected both recipients and benefactors, understanding that these relationships often carried deeper meaning than simple financial transactions. Manny saw in this project a potential vehicle for revealing his connection to Miguel, while serving the larger purpose of inspiring others to similar acts of generosity. Manny's initial meetings with Valdez revealed a filmmaker whose approach to the subject was both respectful and insightful, someone who understood that the most meaningful charitable giving often took place away from public attention. The director was particularly interested in exploring how anonymous assistance affected the psychology of both giving and receiving, recognizing that these dynamics could provide valuable insights for others considering similar actions. His vision for the documentary aligned with Manny's own desire to use Miguel's story as inspiration for broader charitable activities. The champion's decision to participate in the documentary was influenced by his growing conviction that Miguel's story could serve purposes beyond their individual connection. The young man's recovery and transformation had been so remarkable that Manny believed sharing their experience could motivate others to look for ways to help families facing similar crises. The documentary would provide a platform for discussing the broader implications of anonymous giving, while respecting the personal nature of the relationship between benefactor and recipient. Manny insisted that any revelation of his identity be handled with careful attention to Miguel's comfort and consent, understanding that the young man had never asked for celebrity attention or public scrutiny. The champion wanted to ensure that Miguel and his family were genuinely interested in meeting him, rather than feeling pressured by media expectations or social obligations. The documentary team agreed to approach the Santos family carefully, explaining the opportunity without revealing Manny's identity until they had confirmed the family's interest in participating. The preliminary conversations with Miguel's family revealed their genuine curiosity about their anonymous benefactor and their desire to express gratitude in person, but also their concerns about privacy and the potential complications that media attention might bring. Esperanza Santos was particularly thoughtful about the implications for her son's future, wanting to ensure that any public revelation would serve Miguel's interests rather than simply satisfying public curiosity. These discussions convinced Manny that the family possessed the wisdom and integrity necessary to handle the revelation responsibly. Miguel's own response to the possibility of meeting his benefactor was characterized by the same maturity and thoughtfulness that had impressed Manny throughout the young man's recovery. Miguel expressed genuine interest in the meeting, while acknowledging his nervousness about discovering the identity of someone who had played such a crucial role in his life. His primary concern was ensuring that he could adequately express his gratitude and demonstrate that the assistance had been used wisely, concerns that reinforced Manny's positive assessment of the young man's character. The logistics of arranging the meeting required careful coordination between Manny's team, the documentary crew, and Miguel's family, with everyone understanding that they were facilitating an encounter that would be emotionally significant for all involved. The champion insisted that the initial meeting take place in a private setting, away from cameras and media attention, allowing for genuine personal interaction before any decisions were made about public documentation. This approach reflected Manny's understanding that the most meaningful moments often occurred away from public view, in quiet spaces where authentic human connection could develop naturally. As the date for the meeting approached, Manny found himself experiencing a level of nervousness that reminded him of the hours before major championship fights. The champion understood that this encounter would mark a transition from anonymous benefactor to personal relationship, with all the responsibilities and opportunities that such a change would bring. He had spent considerable time preparing for the meeting, not in terms of what he would say, but in terms of how he would listen, understanding that Miguel's perspective and experience would be as valuable to him as his assistance had been to the young man. The meeting took place at a private residence in General Santos City, chosen for its discretion and the comfortable atmosphere it would provide for what everyone understood would be an emotionally charged encounter. Manny arrived early, spending time in quiet reflection about the journey that had brought him to this moment, and the young man whose life had become intertwined with his own through circumstances neither of them could have anticipated. The champion felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility, understanding that this meeting would mark the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives. When Miguel entered the room with his parents, Manny was immediately struck by the young man's bearing and presence, recognizing in his posture and expression the confidence that came from overcoming significant challenges. Miguel's initial shock at seeing his childhood hero was quickly replaced by a composure that impressed the champion, as the young man processed the revelation that Manny Pacquiao had been his anonymous benefactor. The moment of recognition was captured by the documentary cameras, but the emotional weight of the encounter transcended any media considerations. Miguel's first words were a simple expression of gratitude that carried the weight of months of wondering about his benefactor's identity and motivations. The young man spoke with obvious sincerity about how Manny had been his inspiration long before becoming his savior, describing how the champion's rise from poverty had motivated his own boxing training and dreams of athletic achievement. The irony that his hero had saved not just his career, but his life itself, seemed to overwhelm Miguel momentarily, but he recovered quickly to express his appreciation with remarkable eloquence. Manny's response focused on Miguel's courage and determination throughout his medical crisis, emphasizing that the young man's character had been the real factor in his successful recovery. The champion shared his own experiences with injury and setback, offering insights that came from personal understanding of the challenges involved in rebuilding both physical strength and mental confidence. Their conversation revealed the natural connection that existed between them based on shared experiences with poverty, boxing, and the understanding that success carried responsibilities to help others. The discussion that followed covered Miguel's recovery process, his changed academic focus, and his plans for using his experience to help other families facing medical crises. Manny was clearly impressed by the young man's maturity and his decision to channel his experience into service to others, recognizing in Miguel's response the same kind of character that had driven his own charitable activities. The champion began to see possibilities for collaboration that could multiply the impact of his original assistance many times over. Esperanza and Arturo Santos found themselves in the extraordinary position of thanking one of the most famous people in the Philippines for saving their son's life, a conversation that seemed to belong in dreams rather than reality. Manny's responses were gracious and humble, emphasizing that he had simply been in a position to help and that Miguel's family had provided the love and support that were essential to his recovery. The champion's genuine interest in their experiences and perspectives made them feel valued as individuals rather than simply as beneficiaries of his generosity. As the afternoon progressed, the conversation evolved from expressions of gratitude to discussions about future possibilities, with both men recognizing that their connection could serve purposes far beyond the original medical assistance. Manny's foundation was developing new programs focused on medical assistance for young athletes, and Miguel's experience could provide valuable insights into how such programs should be structured and implemented. The young man's academic focus on social work aligned perfectly with the foundation's mission, creating opportunities for collaboration that excited both of them. The emotional impact of their meeting was profound for everyone present, but it was balanced by a growing sense of excitement about future possibilities. Miguel's gratitude was transforming into motivation to help others, while Manny's generosity was being validated by evidence of its profound and lasting impact. The documentary cameras captured not just a reunion between benefactor and recipient, but the birth of a partnership that would extend their shared story into new chapters of service and community impact, demonstrating how individual acts of kindness could evolve into movements that touched countless lives. In the weeks following their initial meeting, Manny and Miguel began developing a working relationship that combined the champion's resources and experience with the young man's fresh perspective and personal understanding of medical crisis. Their collaboration started with Miguel joining Manny's foundation as a consultant on medical assistance programs, bringing insights that could only come from someone who had experienced both the desperation of facing an unaffordable medical emergency and the relief of receiving anonymous help. The partnership represented a natural evolution of their connection, transforming gratitude into productive collaboration. Miguel's first project with the foundation involved developing protocols for identifying and assisting families facing medical crises similar to his own situation. His experience had taught him about the psychological aspects of receiving anonymous help, insights that proved valuable in designing programs that preserved recipients' dignity while providing necessary assistance. The young man's academic training in social work complemented his personal experience, creating a unique qualification for helping other families navigate the complex emotions and practical challenges associated with serious medical situations. Manny found in Miguel not just a success story, but a genuine collaborator whose perspective enriched his understanding of how charitable giving could be most effectively implemented. The young man's questions and suggestions challenged the champion to think more deeply about the long-term impact of assistance programs, considering not just immediate medical needs, but the broader implications for families and communities. Their working relationship was characterized by mutual respect and shared commitment to helping others, with each man contributing unique strengths to their collaborative efforts. The Foundation's medical assistance program expanded significantly under Miguel's influence, with new procedures for follow-up care and family support that reflected his understanding of the recovery process. His recommendations led to partnerships with rehabilitation centers and social service agencies, creating comprehensive support systems that addressed not just medical needs, but the emotional and practical challenges that families faced during extended treatment periods. These innovations made the Foundation's assistance more effective and meaningful for recipients. Miguel's public speaking about his experience became an important component of the Foundation's outreach efforts, with the young man sharing his story at medical conferences, charitable events, and community gatherings throughout the Philippines. His ability to articulate both the challenges of medical crisis and the impact of receiving help made him an effective advocate for expanded assistance programs. The combination of his personal experience and professional training created a powerful platform for inspiring others to support similar initiatives. The documentary featuring their story was released to widespread acclaim, generating significant media attention and public interest in anonymous charitable giving. The film's impact extended far beyond entertainment, inspiring viewers to examine their own capacity for helping others and leading to increased support for medical assistance programs throughout the country. Several wealthy individuals came forward to establish similar programs, while ordinary citizens organized fundraising efforts for families facing medical crises in their own communities. Manny's decision to reveal his identity as Miguel's benefactor had created opportunities for both men that neither had anticipated when their connection began. The champion found that his relationship with Miguel had deepened his understanding of effective charitable giving, while the young man discovered that his experience had prepared him for a career focused on helping others facing similar challenges. Their partnership demonstrated how individual acts of generosity could evolve into sustainable programs that served entire communities. The success of their collaboration led to discussions about expanding the Foundation's medical assistance programs internationally, with Miguel's insights contributing to the development of protocols that could be adapted for different healthcare systems and cultural contexts. The young man's perspective as both a recipient of assistance and a professional social worker made him uniquely qualified to help design programs that would be effective across diverse settings. Their shared vision of helping families facing medical crises had grown into a mission that could impact lives around the world. 2 years after their first meeting, Manny and Miguel had established one of the most successful medical assistance programs in Southeast Asia, helping hundreds of families access life-saving treatments while maintaining the dignity and privacy that had characterized Manny's original assistance to Miguel. The program's success was measured not just in the number of surgeries funded or families helped, but in the ripple effects that extended throughout communities as recipients became advocates for others facing similar challenges. Miguel's role had evolved from consultant to program director, with his unique combination of personal experience and professional training making him an ideal leader for the expanding initiative. The Foundation's approach to medical assistance had become a model for other charitable organizations, with Miguel frequently invited to share insights about program design and implementation at international conferences. His presentations emphasized the importance of preserving recipients' dignity while providing comprehensive support that addressed not just immediate medical needs, but the broader challenges that families face during treatment and recovery. The young man's expertise had grown to encompass not just his personal experience, but a deep understanding of healthcare systems, family dynamics, and community support networks. Manny's relationship with Miguel had evolved into something that transcended their original benefactor-recipient connection, becoming a genuine friendship based on shared values and mutual respect. The champion often remarked that helping Miguel had taught him as much as it had given, providing insights into effective charitable giving that had improved all of his foundation's programs. Their collaboration had demonstrated that the most meaningful assistance created opportunities for recipients to become contributors, transforming individual acts of generosity into sustainable movements for positive change. The documentary about their story had inspired similar revelations from other anonymous benefactors, creating a cultural shift toward more open discussion of charitable giving and its impact on both recipients and donors. Miguel had become a spokesperson for this movement, using his platform to encourage others who had received anonymous help to share their stories and consider how their experiences could benefit others facing similar challenges. His advocacy had contributed to a growing understanding that charitable giving was most effective when it created opportunities for recipients to help others in turn. Miguel's academic and professional development had continued alongside his work with the Foundation, with the young man completing advanced degrees in social work and public health while maintaining his role as program director. His scholarly research focused on the psychological and social aspects of medical assistance, contributing to academic understanding of how charitable programs could be designed to maximize their positive impact on recipients and communities. The combination of his personal experience, professional training, and practical expertise had made him a recognized authority in the field. The boxing gym where Miguel had first trained had become an unofficial headquarters for the Foundation's youth programs, with the facility serving as a community center that provided not just athletic training, but educational support and mentorship for young people throughout the region. Miguel's return to the gym as a successful professional, rather than just a recovered patient, had inspired other young fighters to pursue their dreams while maintaining focus on education and character development. The facility had evolved into a symbol of how individual success could be channeled into community benefit. Manny's decision to help Miguel had ultimately transformed both of their lives in ways that neither could have anticipated. When the champion first read Esperanza Santos's letter requesting assistance for her son's surgery, the anonymous gift that had saved Miguel's life had evolved into a partnership that was helping families throughout the Philippines and beyond, demonstrating how individual acts of generosity could create lasting positive change when recipients were empowered to become contributors. Their story had become a testament to the power of human connection and the importance of using personal success to create opportunities for others. As Miguel reflected on the journey that had taken him from a hospital bed to a meaningful career helping others, he understood that his story was really about the transformative power of generosity and the responsibility that came with receiving extraordinary help. The anonymous gift that had saved his life had been transformed into a legacy of hope that would continue to impact lives for generations to come. His relationship with Manny had taught him that true greatness was measured not by personal achievements, but by the willingness to lift others up, and that the most meaningful success came from creating opportunities for others to discover their own potential for making a difference in the world. This story demonstrates how individual acts of generosity can create ripple effects that extend far beyond their original scope, transforming both recipients and benefactors while inspiring others to find their own ways of contributing to the greater good. It illustrates the power of anonymous giving to preserve dignity while creating opportunities for recipients to become contributors, showing how the most meaningful charitable assistance empowers people to help others facing similar challenges. The relationship between Manny and Miguel exemplifies how genuine human connections can transcend differences in circumstances and status, creating partnerships that multiply the positive impact of individual kindness and inspire movements for lasting social change. Thank you for watching another episode of Champion Stories. If you enjoyed today's story, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming inspiring tales about Manny Pacquiao. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and many times your ideas inspire our next episode. See you next time. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to our channel.